Hello, nerds! Today I have a very special guest, the first rapper on Nerds for Yang. Welcome to the show, MC Jin.
Hello, nerds! Yo!
A little sprinkle at the end, no doubt.
Just a slight sprinkle. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Hey, man, I'm super excited to have you because a lot of people were so excited when they heard that you were supporting Andrew. To be honest, I'm a little bit older than you, so I'm not super up to speed with the latest rap artists. So I said,
well, then that makes perfect sense. I'm not part of that group. So the fact that you're older actually makes sense that you've never heard of me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how would you describe who is MC Jin?
I love it, Tom. I love it. All right. Well, I think at this point of my life, it's interesting because if someone were to just say, tell us a bit about yourself, I don't know. Interestingly enough, the first thing I wouldn't necessarily want to share, not that I wouldn't want to share, but the first thing I wouldn't feel inclined to share about is, I guess, the rap and the hip hop part of me, which is only interesting to me because once upon a time, I would want to share about that at any given opportunity, like, yeah, my name is MC Jin. I rhyme, I'm a rapper. I do this, I do that. I got skills. I'm the best rapper on the planet, in the galaxy, in the universe. So I say that to say there's definitely been a shift in, I guess, even how I view myself and what I relate my own identity to the most. So with that said, I mean, if someone said, well, who is Jin? Who is MC Jin? Who is Jin? Well, currently I'm a husband. I'm a father. I think just in a general sense, I'm just someone that really loves interacting with people. Like I'm a people person for sure, right? I'm a people person. Maybe it's because I'm a Gemini. I don't know how much you're into zodiac signs and horoscopes, I should say. But I see that there's definitely a duality. On one end, I'm the guy that's on stage. I'll talk to strangers and just be super like extroverted. But then at the same time, I have the part of me that's a bit more like, I'm very, what is the word? I think a lot, right? So I'm in my own thoughts a lot. And I'm the guy I'll go to Disney World by myself. Like, I don't know anybody that does it, but I was like, if I have a day off this was rare, but I was like, I'm going to go to Disney World or I'll go watch movies by myself.
I was going to say, would you go to a movie by yourself?
So there you go. So that's like the, I guess you could say the stuff that you won't find out about me on Wikipedia. So that's the stuff that's not on Wikipedia. But if I were to give you who is the Wikipedia Jin, right? So Wikipedia Jin, basically, I was born and raised in Miami. Families from home. They came to America like back in the 80s, roughly. So I was born in the U.S. I was born in Miami, and then grew up in I would like to think, semi-typical Asian American immigrant family, right? Semi in the sense that my parents ran a takeout restaurant as far back as I can remember. So I grew up in that environment. When you walk into a little Chinese takeout restaurant and you see the 8-year-old that's sitting at the counter,
little kid taking the phone
or he's
calls.
or the 10-year-old that's answering the phone, or the 14-year-old that's riding his bike to bring you your fried rice, or the 18-year-old that's driving his Honda Civic and pulling up to your house with Biggie playing outside, right?
That's all you.
And like that's all me. And when you give him the $1.75 tip, and he gives you the look like, that's it, $1.75. That's me. So I grew up around all of that. So all of that was, I say, standard. I mean, as far as the Asian, particularly like the Chinese American immigrant experience, right? If it's not the takeout restaurant, maybe it's the laundromat. But the non-typical side, I would say, this is where I guess a lot of what people know of me now comes in. I also grew up loving hip hop. I also grew up loving, and I won't even just say hip hop specifically, but I would say pop culture. And also just, everything that, a 80s kid, 90s kid would love growing up in America, being born in America, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, going to Chuck E. Well, not even Chuck E. Cheese. In Miami, we used to go to this place called the Discovery Zone. I don't even know if those are still open.
I've never heard of that one. Yeah. But is it like a Florida version of Chuck E. Cheese?
Thing, the Discovery Zone. Now, but it's places where you go and play games. And yes. But so on that end, non-typical Asian household in the sense that, you know, I would come home and yes, we would be watching, you know, Chinese soap operas and Chinese movies. But at the same time, you'll see me walking around the house, writing my little raps, doing little freestyle raps at the restaurant, at home. And I would say by 15 or 16 years old, so, you know, going into high school, I was pretty like dead set on what my career path would be. And that is, I mean, in short, to be a rap star.
Yeah, so that's where we get atypical in terms of the Asian American experience, right?
Of course. Now, and also to put context on it, everything I'm describing, it is like in the early to mid 90s. So definitely, and you would know, right? You've been in the game for a long time, Tom.
That's right.
Longer than me, at least. I'm talking about the life game, maybe not the rap game, but you've definitely been in the life game. So I think you could attest to the fact that whether it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you know, there's definitely been shifts and also increments of progress, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it's not typical for Asian parents to be supportive of a kid that wants to go into the arts and then even further to go into rap. I mean, maybe like ballet or violin.
Yeah, maybe that's what I should have told my dad. I was like, I want to be a rapper that plays the violin.
Then it's okay.
That might have offset the turbulence at home a little bit. If I was like,
you do that at MIT, you're fine. You play the violin.
I'm gonna get a record deal, but at MIT, or you know, like, look, I'm gonna work on my rap demo tape while I'm getting this accountant's license or something like that.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, well, kind of on that note, my parents were also very, I guess you could say, traditional in that sense, in the sense that they were not on board for the rap thing at all. They were not on board for it. And, you know, it did cause a lot of friction at home. I think when I was younger, I definitely didn't see things from their perspective at all. So, you know, 14-year-old Jin, 17-year-old Jin, it wasn't like I was going out of my way to rebel. I definitely think there was a lot of like resistance on both ends. The more that they were like, why would you want to do this? You know what I mean? And, you know, and in the most extreme cases, you know what I mean? Like, you know, they were like, what did we do wrong? Like, did we bring the wrong kid home? You know, stuff like that. Yeah. And to me, it's just a testament of what families should be and how they are. There's bound to be friction. There's bound to be confrontation. But like I said, where it changed for me is now as a parent myself, Asian parent or not, just a parent in general, I totally their biggest concern was just my well-being, you know, as far as like, you know, like, why is he picking something that's so uncertain and something that's so kind of non-conventional, you know? But who's to say that becoming a doctor guarantees success and happiness? I mean, my bank account probably would have been, look a little healthier, but, you know, would I have been happy? Would I have become a good person? Would I have ended up, you know, where I am now, as far as just, not only just success, but just as far as a human being, you know? So as time passes, like anything, you know, they grow up, I grow up, our minds kind of shift in perspective. So whereas as time gradually made them more open-minded, I feel like I've become a little more traditional and conventional. So like, you know, now, you know, my older son, I have two little boys, our 7-year-old, right? His name is Chance. You know, it's amazing, even to tie it into the Asian American experience. You know, it's like we look at, you know, Jeremy, right? Uncle Jeremy. It's like, you know, if he's like, oh, I can be an NBA player, of course you can, Chance. And then now we see, you know, Mr. Yang. It's like, wait, I can run for president? Of course you can, Chance. Yeah. And then, you know, he sees Daddy and he's like, wait, so I can try to get a rap record deal too? And I'm like, of course you can.
I mean, that's amazing that they're growing up. Yeah.
I just don't know if that's what I would want him to do.
But at least he's got role models that are excelling in all these different areas, right?
You have one little boy, or
I got two boys. I I got one that's always on camera because he's kind of loves it, and then I got another one who's a little more shy. He prefers to stay off camera.
Nice. And they're mini yang gang, correct?
They love Yang. They're 11 and 9, and yeah, one of them he keeps drawing art. Where was the last thing he drew? Oh, here it is. It's
nice.
Let me show you some shit he drew. You can't read it, but
that's such an awesome dad thing to say. You're pretty cool, Tom. I wish that's such a quotable. Did you even notice what you just said? Let me show you some shit that he drew.
That's like the proud dad moment.
But
yeah.
But it was so much love in the way you said it, though. Like, man, let me show you some shit that he drew. Oh,
he's a genius. Yeah. So yeah, they have a good time, and they have no idea what a big deal it is that we have a Asian American running for president that's being like getting national attention. They have no idea. They think this is normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you could say that's a good thing too.
Oh, yeah.
I feel that's also the thing with just youth and kids, right? So you have 11 and a 9-year-old. I have these little mini conversations with my 7-year-old. We have a newborn. So we have a 7-year-old and a 6-month-old. So when I talk to the 7-year-old, it kind of is fascinating to me, some of the things that we know for sure. It's really the world. And as we get older, that certain things get, I don't want to say tainted, but when he's with his little friends, they're not talking about race issues. They're not talking about race relations, and they're not talking about what it means that, Chance is Asian, his best buddy might be African-American or Caucasian. They're not talking about that. They're just like, hey man, let's play Minecraft. Right. Yeah. And that's it. So, I mean, I think at some point, there's obviously beauty in acknowledging our different backgrounds and cultures and kind of seeing how that actually brings us together in a sense. But I also feel like sometimes, man, like the innocence is cool. You know what I mean? Like in some sense where he sees Andrew, right? And he just be like, man, this Andrew Yang guy is cool, right? Math, right? But he's not, like you just said, he's not dwelling too much on the fact that, do you know how groundbreaking it is that, this could potentially be the first Asian American president? So there you go.
Yeah. Well, how did you first hear about Andrew? Like, where did that start?
So my Yang story is, I think really the first time that the name Andrew Yang was even on my radar was probably at the top of this year. So like, I would say like maybe February, March, like the first quarter of the year. And it was really just, I would say specifically just through online. So it wasn't mainstream media, right? It wasn't like it's not that I watch Fox or CNN often anyways, but ever so often, while I'm channel surfing, and the talking heads pop up, I might just take a gander. But yeah, it definitely wasn't through none of those platforms. It was either just through my timeline, Twitter, something, but the name popped up. Then from there, I gradually watched like 1 or 2 more interviews. And interestingly enough, it wasn't even the Joe Rogan podcast. Truth be told, I haven't even watched the Joe Rogan podcast.
Dude, you have to. You have to.
Well, here's the thing. This is how Jin is kind of like, I mean, and it just goes to show, I mean, the fact that I went the path that I went as a rapper or whatever. But this just goes to show you how sometimes I'm very like, oh, everyone's doing this one thing, man, I'm going to go out of my way to not do that thing, right? So in this case, where everyone is like, yeah, it was the Joe Rogan podcast that kind of opened my eyes to him. So I'm not saying like I'm anti-watching the Joe Rogan podcast, but I'm kind of wearing it like a badge of honor.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you guys all saw the Joe Rogan podcast? Well, I haven't seen it, and I don't need to see it,
I have a friend who refuses to watch Star Wars. He's kind of a dick for that, but whatever.
Okay.
So, he's like, I haven't even seen it.
I don't remember what article it was, but it was just online.
Yeah.
And then I think I'll be honest, there was an initial fascination with, this the Asian dude, right? And this is not knowing any background about him.
Yeah.
So he had announced his candidacy already. I think that's what the article was about. And it touched briefly on the freedom dividend. So it wasn't like I read that article and it was like, oh, Andrew Yang, freedom dividend, this is it. It wasn't the case at all. If anything, I think another month, 2 months, 3 months passed by. And then I think, I knew that he had a book out. And I think that was something that, because I'm a reader, this is a great chance for me to use this word. And I feel so comfortable using it on Nerds for Yang. I'm a voracious reader. I hope I used the word correctly.
I think you did. I think you did.
Voracious. I am a voracious reader.
Oh, and a good speller as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a rapper. I would like to think that most rappers either, are semi-good spellers, or they know their way around words, right? And vocabulary. But I heard about the War on Normal People, and then being the voracious reader that I am, I was like, I gotta pick up this book, But I think, of course, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to Barnes and Noble or somewhere to find it. And as I was like on my way out the door, I was like, honey, I'm gonna go to Barnes and Noble. And my wife was like, wait, what are you gonna go buy? And then and this was kind of the first time me and her even talked about this Andrew Yang fella. I was like, yeah, there's this book from this guy. He's running for president, da da da. And then she's like, I'll look for it online, right? And this right here shows you how automation is shutting down shops. Because I was almost gonna buy something at a brick and mortar bookstore. I
know, you're gonna go to like Tower Records or something.
But lo and behold, God bless her, she orders the book, and she got it for me as like a gift. And I breezed through the book, like it's not a thick book anyways, but it's chapter after chapter after chapter, and literally by the end of the book, I was pretty much, how they have like stage 1 through stage 7 of the yang, of getting yang. I would say that after reading the book, I jumped from stage 2 to stage 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. After reading the book, I jumped from stage 2 to stage 6. So after the book, that's when I dived in more online, watching more interviews, and still not the Joe Rogan podcast, but just various platforms that he had popped up on already. And then I think stage 7, full on stage 7, was when, I had kind of made up in my mind that this is the guy that I'm going to rally behind. Other than actually casting a vote, what can I do? And of course, just by nature, my creative juices started flowing. And there was this specific one classic Wu-Tang song. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to quit, right? And then I was like, I'm surprised nobody has kind of taken that and did a variation yet, right? Because it just sounds so good. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. So that whole composition probably took like 5 minutes. Because really, once I have ideas, usually it's pretty fluid, right? So I write the little rap, I go to the studio and I record it. And then I think that was my stage 7 moment. And I was like, I'm Yang Gang. I mean, yeah, literally. I mean, the lyric is Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. And funny side note, my 7-year-old Chance, at this point, I mean, he's kind of Yang Gang by default also, but he knows all the words to like every Andrew Yang rap that I've ever written, which I think is kind of amusing.
Dude, he's learning early. Good for him, man.
Yeah.
Have you met Andrew? What do you think of him?
Yeah. So my first encounter with him was only, today is October 7th, right? So literally it was only less than a week ago. It was at the LA rally.
Yeah. Everybody was there. It sounds like.
Yeah. The LA rally was pretty amazing. I mean, how about this? If when I wrote the Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. If that was when I was stage 7, after the rally, I was like stage 12. I don't even know if there's no stage 12, but after the rally, it just opened my eyes even more and more to not so much how amazing Andrew is. I'm not even going to say that, but it opened my eyes more to how amazing this campaign and the movement, the movement is. Like, because I think prior to the rally, the past month, I would say that I've really been engaged with the online community of it, right? Yang Gang online, right? Yang Gang URL. So I think the thing now is, how do we take the URL and turn it into IRL, right? Like, how do we get it on the ground? How do we get it into the school, the classrooms and the workplaces? And how do we really, just tell people who Andrew is at this point? You know what I mean? But at the rally, I saw him speak. And then also shout out to Paget. It was my first time meeting Paget too. So Paget shared a little bit and then introduced me. And then I shared a little bit, did my little rap, and then Andrew came out. But then another kind of funny, even more intimate encounter was I was going to this boba store. Shout out to boba, guys. Shout out
Of
to
course
Andrew
you
for
were.
boba. There's another Andrew. Shout out to Andrew from boba, guys, who actually kind of was a catalyst in me going to California, because he actually invited me to the fundraising event.
Mm.
Yeah, and it was through him inviting me to the fundraising event that I ended up saying, you know what, I'm also going to go to the rally. So there's an Andrew also, Boba Andrew. I'll call that one Boba Andrew. But I was just going to his store to get a drink before the rally. And as I'm walking up to the store, you know, there's like a mini camera crew sitting outside, like literally just one guy with a camera. And then there's another like assistant, and there's a host. And then there's a gentleman that's being interviewed. And with every step that I get closer, this is literally right outside of the boba shop, right? I'm like, oh man, that guy kind of looks like Andrew Yang. And, you know, I don't want to be that guy. All Asians look alike. I don't want to be that guy. So as with every step that I get closer, I'm like, oh, it is, right? So I had no plans. I had no plans of interjecting on the interview, because they were literally in the midst of the interview. So I was just going to tiptoe into the store. But as I walk by, the interviewer guy happens to reference me. So he's speaking with Andrew about something, but he's like, have you gotten used to the fact that people walk around with shirts that say math on it, or hats that say math? And then as he's asking Andrew that question, he points at me like this gentleman right here. So then the camera, and I was like, all right, I wasn't going to interject, but if you're invited into this, then hell
it's
yeah.
On. It's on.
Yeah, it's on. So on that note, Andrew himself turns around, and it was cool because it was pretty much like a on the money moment where he recognized me, right? And then he was like, oh, so then he got up and we shook hands. And that was actually our first meeting ever, is what I was going to say.
And so how did that go? Like, did you guys do the interview together, or what happened?
Oh, no. Well, you know, there was like a 5-second bromance.
Okay. Yeah.
There was a 5-second bromance that felt like, to me, it felt like 5 minutes, because it was just like a nice, I mean, Andrew's a little older than me, right? So, you know, it was like an uncle that, you know, you're really tight with, and you see him at the family reunion every year, and maybe you hadn't seen him for a while now. So there was like a 5-second, like, man, what's going on with you, Jin? Not verbally, but just in terms of the body language. Yeah. And then me, I'm just like, man, this is one of my favorite uncles. You know what I mean? He's not even that much older than me, but it was that type of moment. And I think the thing that he was conveying in the midst of that interaction was just gratitude. And I felt that from him already, even just him being very vocal about, you know, like, man, you know, just thank you, Jin, for your contribution to this big thing in your own way. Whether it's through like little raps here and there, or just being a proponent of him. You know, whether I'm doing an interview that's outside of the you know the Yang Gang, you know, bubble, so to speak. Like, I may be doing an interview about something else, but then if the setting is right and if permitted, I'm always enthusiastic as well as proactive in saying, so you guys know about the Yang Gang, right? You know, so he expressed his gratitude for that, and it's mutual. You know what I mean? The same way he expresses his gratitude for that, I think all of us within the Yang Gang, we're grateful for him kind of committing to this thing that he's doing. You know, because it's big. It's a lot of sacrifice. I think that's also sometimes easy to overlook. Not only just for Andrew, I think anyone who throws their name into this hat, this presidential election hat, it's sacrifice in various ways. And I don't think that should be overlooked either.
Yeah, no, he's giving up a ton of time and energy. He's putting himself out there. His wife must be, you know, a real trooper.
Absolutely.
And you know, it costs money to not make money, which is like he's not earning a salary or anything. So you know, more power to him. Like, that's why whenever my wife says like, oh, you're doing all this stuff for your channel, I'm like, this is like a 1% of what that guy's doing. So we can make a couple videos.
And to me, and just to piggyback off of that sentiment, to me, it's kind of infectious, you know what I mean? This whole thing, you know, himself, the Yang Gang as a collective, the campaign as a whole, and there are some serious matters at hand, right? We're talking about kind of who's going to run the country.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, employment. We're talking about birthrights. We're talking about immigration. Like, this is all serious, serious stuff. So I don't ever want to just sideline that. But there's something amazing about the fun that can also be had, and that is occurring right now in terms of within the movement. You know what I mean? Like, and I think to me that's what life is. It's like you got to have balance. We're all kind of like envisioning something and fighting for something that's very serious. However, at the same time, it's also cool to me that it can be fun, the process.
100%.
Like at the rally, at the rally and these little online fun things that happen on a daily, and everyone's just like kind of circling around it and rallying behind it. It's cool. I think not even for me, I'm blessed that, I have some pretty solid foundation in my life as far as my family, as far as friends, as far as, passion and direction. But I can imagine that there are a lot of people out there, not so much that are just disenfranchised, but I think a lot of people that are isolated, you know what I mean? Like, and they're isolated for whatever reason it may be, whether it's their background, whether it's, their financial space, whatever. But in that isolation, they discover the Yang Gang, and it's like, man, like, I'm part of this. And this thing is literally open to anyone and everyone. And I guess there's kind of a beautiful thing about that.
It's surprisingly diverse, and I've met people from all walks of life as part of this gang, which is so cool. Like, and we would never have connected.
Never.
Right?
How about this? Freaking the first thing that I was like, what was so I mean, I've done like a few little rap things, but the one that I think has gotten the most traction in the last 2 to 3 weeks is when I took the DNC debate.
And then I saw that one.
I remade like the 8 Mile battle.
Right.
But the moment that I saw Dominique Wilkins, when I saw Dominique Wilkins the human highlight reel, slam dunk champion. I mean, because I'm an 80s kid, right?
Yeah.
So if we're talking NBA, like, and that world, right? Because I'm an NBA kid. I'm for sure an NBA kid. Before I wanted to be a rapper, I actually was like, I'm going to be in the NBA. But then by like the 5th grade, I realized that this is as tall as I'm going to be for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That's when the NBA dream had to be let go. But when I saw Dominique Wilkins retweet the video and like say, man, this is fire, I was like, what? Dominique Wilkins. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, it's magical, and everybody, the positivity is quite contagious as well. Right.
It is.
Like and you don't sense that happening in other campaigns. So I think we've got something special. I would never forgive myself if I didn't ask you this question about Shane Gillis, because you are an artist.
Yes, sir.
You appreciate the importance of creativity, of kind of pushing limits. But you also are an Asian American who probably encountered some prejudice along the way in life.
Absolutely.
So I was kind of curious how you felt. Like, obviously Andrew took the high road and he was like, hey, it's all good.
Yeah.
I was curious, what was your thoughts on that?
Man, I have a lot of thoughts, but I think if I could be concise about it, well, I'll say this about Andrew first and his reaction. When he reacted the way he did, right? I thought it spoke volumes about not only just, like this guy is taking the high road, but I think it spoke volumes about how he wants to present himself as he continues on this path that he's going, as far as just potentially being the leader of the free world, right?
Yeah.
And steering that ship. So I think that people that are offended by his reaction, they have a right to be also, right? The point is, every single person has a right to feel however they want to feel. So for me, right, I noticed that there was a couple of things that unfolded simultaneously. When he came out and decided to take the high road, there was the initial people that are like, nah, man, you can't let that fly. If you take the high road, you're essentially condoning it. And you're essentially saying it's okay to make fun of Asians. And there were people that were offended by that. And I was like, if they feel that way, more power to them. Because I think that is the main point. We all have a right to feel however we want to feel. Then you had the opposite spectrum, which was people that were like, as powerful, right? Because I think the main thing to me that I got from Andrew's kind of overall, his response to the situation was that, you know, if I can forgive him, then hopefully this can be a reflection of something that shifts this, you know, quote unquote, cancel culture that we're living in, which is, yeah, I mean, it's stronger than it's ever been. You know, the whole, like, you say one thing, we're done with you. And that just is across all spectrums, whether it's politics, entertainment, athletes, you know, you could be a restaurant, right? Like if Arby's tweets the wrong thing, people could be like, we're never eating roast beef sandwiches ever again, right? And that's just the day and age we live in. So I hope Arby's they should go back and look at their old tweets, make sure there's nothing offensive. I have nothing against Arby's, but I think what Andrew was saying is that, yeah, you know, like maybe it's time that we, you know, obviously we need to be mindful of what it is we forgive and what it is we take the high road on. Because there's some things that, you know, it's not about just taking the high road on, right? But in this case, he's saying, look, I've experienced this even before Shane Gillis. But in this case, Shane Gillis specifically singled me out and called me a chink. And I'm choosing to forgive him. And I hope that this can be a moment where we can all learn from it, right? So more power to Andrew. My point is, I have no qualms with it. Like, I'm not like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like, he's doing that. Now I gotta withdraw my Yang Gang membership. Not at all. However, I'm very respectful of people that might not be as on the same page about his reaction. Now, shifting from Andrew, and you ask me, right? Yeah. I think there's another dynamic that I'll throw in there too. So my background is, you know, I'm a hip hop rap artist, and, you know, I've dabbled in acting as well. But even in the last 2-3 years, I've also been exploring stand-up comedy myself, right? So, you know, really starting from the ground up. Like, I live in New York, so going to open mics and, you know, really like honing the craft as well as just learning about the art. So I've learned that, and it's an actual thing about punching up, punching down, right? Like, as a comic, essentially you're never supposed to punch down. You're supposed to punch up, right? So you make fun of the establishment. You know, you can make fun of cultural things, but you never punching down is essentially making fun of people that are not in power, so to speak. So in this case, you know, I think I'm not familiar with Shane. Prior to this, I didn't really follow his work. And after this, I also didn't dive any more into his work, right? So more power to Andrew, who's like, I watched 45 minutes of his stuff to get a gauge. I was like, man, I couldn't do that. Like, after that, I was like, yo, more than ever, I'm not going to devote any more time and energy to this, right? But I will say that, unfortunately, what we saw of that situation where he's on his podcast with another, I think, kind of like host, and they're going off their 3-4 minute rant about, the Chinese restaurants and this and that. Like, first of all, to me, right off the top, it wasn't funny. So that's the bottom line. To me, it wasn't funny, but laughter and humor is subjective too. So my thing is, if it was funny, the sense of humor, Jin, and the lover of expression and comedy and humor, Jin, I would have been the first one to laugh. Like, I probably might have been like, man, that's effed up. You know what I mean? That's effed up. But I also would have been like, oh, man, right? But the point is what they were saying. It just wasn't funny to me. So right off the top, that was my personal reaction to it. As far as like, oh, Jin, do you forgive him? If Andrew forgives him? I just say I couldn't forgive him because I never took it that serious. Like, I never was that offended. I feel like sometimes, like, we give too much power to these people too. You know what I mean? Because it became this national, you know, CNN covered it and Fox, and rightfully so, because it ties into different sectors, right? It ties into the fact that Andrew's involved and Andrew's running for president. But the point is, if Andrew wasn't running for president, it wouldn't have been a CNN matter. You know what I mean? So my thing is just sometimes we give a lot more attention and power and focus to things than they really deserve or would have gotten just on its own merit. That's my thing. So it's like there were people that were really riled up about it, writing essays, and hey, more power to them too. But to me, it was like, oh, this happened. cool. This is what Andrew's take is. This is what this guy's take is. He's not apologizing and he's doubling down, or he's giving some half-ass apology. All right, cool, whatever. Because I just feel like we need to be very conscious of what we devote our time and energy to. That's all I'm saying.
So when you heard that he was let go from the cast, yeah, how did you feel? Did you think like that was the right thing?
I didn't feel bad. I mean, I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel bad for him, and maybe that's because I don't know him personally. You know what I mean? Like I don't like. I'm sure that it wasn't easy to land the gig. I know that much, but I didn't feel bad, and I didn't. You know what I mean? Like worse things are happening to people in this world. That's my point. You know what I mean? And I think even if we remove the whole cancel culture thing aside, you know, everybody is responsible for what they say and what they do. So, you know, and times change. Like, I mean, there you go again. I mean, Andrew was the first one to say he doesn't think that the guy should have gotten fired. If you ask me, it wouldn't have been a game changer to me if he got fired or didn't get fired. Because in this case where he did get fired, does that mean that people are going to stop being reckless and kind of punching down on Asians and in their sets? And it's not, you know what I mean? Like, so there is one thing though, like I feel that, I mean, the people that do know Jin and have been following my career, they know that, you know, I have always been someone who, you know, does find interest in these type of matters because, you know, I think that speaking out is important, right? So for example, you know, I have a son now and or two, you know, I have little boys, we have kids. I think that really shifts my mindset too, because whereas back in the days, I might not think too much about what does this mean for the future generations and next generations. You know, having kids, it'll definitely open your eyes to that. So in the sense of like, did it warrant all that uproar and people like tweeting and hashtag, you know, cancel SNL, cancel Shane or whatever? Like, I'm not saying that all of that was unwarranted either. You know what I mean? Like I'm saying, hey, express yourself however you want to. No, but you know, on all parties involved, we all need to kind of take stake in what it is that we're saying and doing, right? So maybe he didn't realize, you know, well, if anything, if Shane learns to learn a lesson there, or anybody watching this learn a lesson there, and that is, hey, Asians aren't really the ones to be picking on now because this type of stuff can happen. There can be backlash. Then I applaud to that too. Like, I'm not mad at that at all. I mean, because essentially 10, 15 years ago, in some sense, that's what I was trying to do anyways, right? Like, as far as, you know, when I go into a rap battle, even though I didn't come into the rap battle like, hey, I'm here to represent all Asians with my rhymes, right? But just by default, because the first thing my opponent would say to me is, yeah, you know, you're a rookie. Keep making fortune cookies. Like, by default, I'm in the line of fire. And every Asian person that's watching that is like, all right, what are you going to do, Jin? But the good thing for me, and I always say that this is good for me, is that at that point, my laser sharp focus was really just being a dope MC. You know what I mean? So I wasn't thinking too much about what does this mean for the gajillion Asian people that are watching this. I'm just thinking, oh, that's what you want to do? All right, well, then I come back with my witty rhymes and, you know, and you know, I'm not always victorious, but when I am victorious and it is a moment where other Asians, kids, people of my age, older than me, they watch it and they're like, that's empowering, Jin. I never realized that. I'm saying, like, you know, this is just me sharing. I never realized that as it was unfolding. I'm talking about something that happened like close to 20 years ago, but here I am now, even at the rally in LA, you know, or the event, and people are like, Jin, I've been watching you since then. You know what I mean? Some of these people, they might only just know you through your 8 Mile Yang rap, but quiet as kept. I remember I was in the 8th grade when you showed up at the rap battle every week. And, you know, when you were like, my pants are new, my sweater is new, you're just mad this Chinese kid dressed better than you. Like, man, I was going crazy in my, you know, and I'm like, really? You know what I mean? Like, it's humbling, encouraging, and it's definitely rewarding for me, you know, to know that now, like, you know, so many years removed from it. So
yeah, I mean, well, in a lot of ways, it's rare still to this day to see Asian male characters that are strong, independent, fierce, courageous, and they're not getting like pushed around, right?
Yeah. And I think that, you know, the point is there's nothing wrong with, you know, all the ones that you just described, not as far as like getting pushed around, but there's nothing wrong with the Asian guy that isn't like all muscular and like there's nothing wrong with the nerdy Asian guy. That's what I want to think is also important. You know what I mean? Whereas the stereotype would be like, yeah, Asian guys are nerdy and, you know, they play violin and things like that. So this is cool to talk about on Nerds for Yang, specifically as it pertains to the Asian American experience, specifically the male experience, because, I mean, we're both male, so I guess we can't speak about any other experience other than that, right? But I think that the point is to just find confidence in yourself and your identity without having to seek it from the masses and just outwardly. Like, I think the point is, if you are, this is why I love Nerds for Yang, I guess, right? Like, if you are nerdy, I have more respect for someone that's actually nerdy, or I want to be nerdy. I actually think I'm pretty nerdy. Like, exterior wise, people might not see it because I'm, you know, the yo, you know, the hip hop guy, but I'm about as nerdy as it comes if you really strip it down. But my point is, and I want to close on this, and then and thank you again for having me, Tom. But even to some of the people that are like, you know, maybe not as fond of the way Andrew carries himself, specifically, let's say within the Asian community, that are like, man, some of the things that he says and the way he chooses to approach his platform and then the math hat, it's a little counterproductive and it's setting the community back. I just really, really want us all to take a moment and look at that and dissect it. I don't know if there's any sense in saying that an Asian man that is basically throwing his whole life into the game and aspiring to run the country. I just don't know how you can say that action is setting anybody back. You know what I mean? Okay, you might not agree with the wording and how he approaches it, but I just don't think there's any sense in saying someone taking that step is setting anybody back, right? Because to me, I mean, we don't know how far it'll go, but I would say at this time, man, it's already pretty amazing what he's been able to do as far as impacting, like, not just the election, but culturally, you know. And it's still an uphill battle, you know. I mean, we know even in real time right now, the major platforms still really don't want to acknowledge him yet. No. But it's sort of like you can't not acknowledge him because the movement is too crazy, you know? Like, so I think it'll be exciting and fun for the Yang Gang and the country, right? If we continue to go in the direction that we're going in right now.
It also kind of helps demonstrate some of the diversity of the Asian American community, that everybody has like a different point of view. And for some people, the self-deprecating jokes are like way off limits. And for other people, they're like, yeah, he's owning it. He's actually like turning it around. And, you know, I'm kind of in the middle on that. So
because it's not I think this is the word. I'm Googling the word right now to make sure I'm using it right. I learned this word recently. It's not a monolith. I think that is the word. Monolith. Yes. I'm literally searching.
It's not monolithic.
A large and impersonal political, corporate, or social structure regarded as intractably indivisible and uniform. Yes, it's not a monolith. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, we are definitely not a monolith. So, so there are nerds. So this will be my final closing statement. Again, thank you, Tom. Just know, as far as Asians go, they are nerds. There's MMA fighters. There's NBA basketball players. There's hip hop rappers. There's emo guitar players. There's chefs. Yeah, there's any and every possible shape or form you can think of. I think that's the goal, is to show that it's not a monolith and there's nothing wrong with being any one of those. So, Nerds for Yang.
That's, you know, at the end of the day, all that matters is that we help solve the country's problems together.
Absolutely.
With all people from all backgrounds. And we focus on solutions that are brought by a very, very special, truly gifted leader like Andrew. And as part of this movement, we all will help make it happen.
Humanity first.
Amen, brother. All right, Jin.
Hello,
Thank you so
nerds.
much for coming on. And goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds. Thanks, Tom. Take care.
Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up. Yo, there's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang. He's the one I'm endorsing. This style is awesome. Taking donations, whatever size the portion. If not, volunteer your time instead. Grassroots won't stop at the polls till he's ahead. Some say, who is that? Hey, yo, the newest cat. Other candidates go home feeling super whack. Yeah, they all done. Humanity first, that's the slogan. 2020, here we come. Drop your ballot at the booth just to prove he makes moves. And guess what? Everybody gets $1,000. Studies show it's bound to help economy, making sure we all eat, not just the wealthy. Now I must confess, the country's a mess. God bless us all, it's all just a test. Why not nominate the king of debates? Yeah, it's true with the crew winning votes state to state. Each term 4 years, careful who you get stuck with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Not many politicians can really be trusted. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Yeah.
None whatsoever.
I love it.
I like living on the edge.
Dude, I know, man. I was just watching the video. You were giving a TED talk about spontaneity, right?
Oh yeah.
Back in UCSD. Okay. All right.
Yes,
I'll
sir.
just start it. So I'll do a long hello, nerds, and I'll say, welcome to the show, MC Jin. Then you give us a nice long hello, nerds, and then we'll just be two guys talking. Cool.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.